Hello, and welcome back to Speak English Daily.
Hi, everyone. We are very happy to see you here today.
Have you ever had one of those moments where you knew what you wanted to say, but the second you got emotional, everything just disappeared from your mind?
Oh, all the time, especially during arguments. I'll think of the perfect response like 2 hours later while I'm taking a shower.
Same, and in the moment, your brain just stops cooperating.
Yeah, it's strange because normally I can talk pretty confidently, but if I'm stressed, upset, or nervous, I either talk too much or not at all.
I relate to that so much. Sometimes I freeze up completely. Someone asks me a simple question, and suddenly I can't organize my thoughts.
And then people think you're hiding something or being rude.
Right, when really you're just overwhelmed emotionally.
I remember once I had a disagreement with a friend, and I got so frustrated that I said something I regretted almost immediately.
That feeling is horrible.
It really is. The worst part was that I didn't even mean what I said. I was just angry, and my emotions kind of took control of the conversation.
I think a lot of people experience that. Sometimes emotions speak faster than logic.
That's a good way to put it.
And not everybody reacts loudly either. Some people go completely quiet when they're hurt.
That's me sometimes. If I feel misunderstood, I stop talking because I feel like explaining myself will only make things worse.
Yeah, and then later you replay the conversation in your head thinking, why didn't I just say what I really felt?
Or why did I say it like that?
Honestly, emotional conversations are probably some of the hardest conversations we have in life.
Because you're trying to manage two things at once, your feelings and your words.
And those two things don't always work together very well.
Not at all. I've had moments where I couldn't find the words, even though the feelings were very strong.
Same here. Sometimes getting emotional changes your whole voice, too. You speak faster, quieter, shakier.
Or suddenly much louder than you intended.
Which usually makes the situation even more intense.
Yeah, and afterward, you sit there thinking, that conversation could have gone so much better.
And sometimes it's not even about the conversation itself. You can walk into a discussion already emotionally exhausted from something else.
That's true. Maybe your day was stressful. Maybe you didn't sleep well. Maybe work has been intense for weeks, and then one small comment pushes you over the edge.
Suddenly, you react much more strongly than you normally would.
I had that happen at work once. My manager asked me a pretty simple question during a meeting, and for some reason, I felt attacked.
Even though they probably didn't mean it that way?
Yeah, looking back, I think I was already anxious before the meeting started, but in that moment, I got defensive immediately.
It's interesting how emotions can completely change the meaning we hear in someone's voice.
Totally. When you're stressed, even neutral comments can sound critical.
And anxiety makes communications so much harder, especially when people expect you to respond quickly.
That pressure is awful. Someone asks you something important, everybody's looking at you, and suddenly your mind goes blank.
I hate that feeling.
You know the answer, you had thoughts a second ago, but then your brain just shuts the door.
And then, because you panic, it gets worse.
Exactly. You start thinking, why can't I speak properly right now? Which makes you even more nervous.
I remember having to give a presentation years ago, and I was doing fine until I noticed my voice shaking.
The second you notice it, that's it.
Seriously, I became so aware of myself that I lost my train of thought in the middle of a sentence.
That happened to me during a family conversation once. Everyone was discussing something emotional, and I tried to explain my side, but my voice started shaking.
That's such a vulnerable feeling.
Yeah, because you're trying to stay calm while your body is exposing how emotional you really are.
And sometimes people feel embarrassed about crying while speaking.
Which honestly shouldn't be embarrassing, but people still feel uncomfortable about it.
Especially in professional environments. A lot of people feel pressure to appear composed all the time.
Meanwhile, they're overwhelmed internally.
I think that word describes it perfectly, overwhelmed. Sometimes emotions pile up so heavily that speaking clearly becomes almost impossible.
And when that happens, people often misunderstand you. They focus on your emotional reaction instead of what you were trying to say.
That's frustrating because your actual message gets lost.
Yeah, someone might say, "Why are you so emotional?" instead of listening to the reason you became emotional.
Which can make a person shut down completely.
Or explode even more.
And anger is another difficult one because anger creates speed. People interrupt more, speak louder, and stop listening carefully.
Definitely. Angry conversations move fast, too fast sometimes.
People say things they haven't fully thought through.
And later they realize the issue wasn't even the real issue.
It was stress, fear, pressure, hurt feelings.
Or feeling ignored for too long.
I think emotional communication becomes easier when people stop seeing emotions as weakness.
Yeah, because emotions are part of communication whether we admit it or not.
You know, one misunderstanding I still think about happened a few years ago with one of my closest friends.
Really?
Yeah, and the strange thing is, it started over something very small. She canceled dinner plans at the last minute, and normally I wouldn't care.
But that week had already been stressful for you.
So the cancellation felt bigger than it actually was.
Way bigger.
I remember reading her message and immediately thinking, wow, she doesn't value my time at all.
Amazing how fast the brain creates a whole story.
Seriously. And instead of asking calmly if everything was okay, I replied with this cold, passive-aggressive message.
Oh no.
Oh, yes. It was one of those messages where technically nothing sounds rude, but the tone is very rude.
Those are dangerous.
Extremely dangerous.
Because the other person instantly feels the tension.
She definitely did. She called me right away and asked, "Why are you upset?" And instead of being honest, I said, "I'm not upset."
Which usually means the opposite.
Completely the opposite. But I didn't want to admit I was hurt because it felt childish.
I think a lot of people do that. They try to sound calm while sounding furious at the same time.
That was me, and then the conversation got awkward because she could hear something was wrong, but I kept denying it.
So what happened?
Eventually, she said, "I feel like you're angry at me for something bigger than dinner," and honestly, she was right. I had been feeling ignored for months, but I never talked about it directly, so all those emotions came out through one tiny situation.
That happens so often. The argument looks small on the surface, but emotionally it's connected to 10 other things.
Yes, and I remember feeling emotional during the call because part of me wanted to explain myself properly, but another part was embarrassed for reacting so strongly.
That mix of emotions is rough. Hurt, pride, frustration.
And confusion, too, because sometimes you don't even fully understand your own reaction while it's happening.
That reminds me of something that happened to me with my brother.
What happened?
We were talking about our parents one night, and somehow the conversation turned into this debate about responsibility. At first, it was calm, but then he made a comment that hit a nerve.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he said something like, "You always avoid difficult situations."
Oof.
Exactly. And maybe there was some truth in it, but hearing it out loud made me defensive immediately.
Especially from family. Comments hit differently when they come from people who know you well.
That's what made it worse. I felt exposed. And instead of saying, "That comment hurt me," I started arguing.
That's such a normal reaction, though.
I know, but I handled it terribly. I interrupted him constantly. I kept trying to prove he was wrong instead of listening.
Did the conversation get loud?
Very loud. At one point, my mom walked into the room and said, "Why are you two yelling?" which somehow made us yell more.
Family arguments have a strange talent for escalating fast.
It's almost impressive.
Honestly, yes.
The worst part is that halfway through the argument, I realized I wasn't even arguing about the original topic anymore.
You were arguing emotionally.
Right. I felt judged, so I went into defense mode. And once that happens, communication becomes almost impossible.
Did you talk afterward?
Not for a few days, and during that time I kept replaying the conversation in my head. You know when you suddenly think of calmer, smarter responses later?
Always later, never in the moment.
Never. I remember thinking, why didn't I just say I felt hurt? That would have changed the whole conversation.
That sentence can completely shift the tone of an argument.
Instead, I acted angry because anger felt safer than vulnerability.
Wow, that's honestly very true.
And when we finally talked again, my brother admitted he wasn't trying to attack me. He thought he was being honest and helpful.
So both of you misunderstood each other emotionally.
Pretty much, which is kind of scary when you think about it. Two people can care about each other and still completely fail to communicate during emotional moments.
I think that's why emotional communication requires so much patience. People are usually reacting to feelings underneath the words.
Yeah, sometimes the real conversation is happening emotionally, not verbally.
You know what I've started appreciating more as I've gotten older?
What's that?
People who communicate carefully during emotional moments. Not perfectly, just carefully.
Yeah, people who slow the conversation down instead of making it more chaotic.
Right, because sometimes one calm sentence can completely change the direction of an argument.
I had a coworker like that once. I remember being stressed during a project and I snapped at him during a meeting.
What did you say?
Honestly, something pretty rude. I said, "Why does this keep becoming my problem?" in this irritated tone.
Oof.
Yeah, not my finest moment. And everybody got quiet for a second. I thought he was about to get angry too.
But he didn't.
No, he paused and said, "I think we're both frustrated right now. Can we talk about this calmly?"
Wow, that's such a strong response.
It really changed the atmosphere instantly because he wasn't attacking me back.
And that sentence gives both people room to breathe.
Exactly. It also prevented the conversation from turning personal.
That's something emotionally intelligent people do well. They focus on solving the issue instead of winning the argument.
I wish I could say I always do that.
Same. Sometimes emotions move faster than maturity.
Very true.
I've also noticed that short phrases can help a lot when emotions are building up. Even something simple like, "Give me a second."
That phrase is underrated.
Seriously, it buys you time before saying something impulsive.
And it sounds much healthier than immediately reacting emotionally.
One time, I was having a difficult conversation with someone close to me, and I could feel myself getting upset very quickly. My heart was racing, and I knew if I kept talking without slowing down, I'd say something hurtful.
So what did you do?
I literally stopped and said, "I need a moment to think."
Honestly, that takes self-control.
Maybe, but it also felt awkward at first. I used to think pauses during conversations were bad.
Same. Silence can feel uncomfortable, especially during emotional discussions.
But sometimes silence is better than reacting carelessly.
Definitely. Another helpful phrase is, "I'm trying to explain how I feel."
Yes, that phrase changes the tone because it reminds the other person you're communicating emotionally, not attacking them.
It also sounds more honest, less defensive.
Speaking of defensive, I think many arguments get worse because people focus too much on protecting themselves.
Instead of understanding each other.
Right. For example, if someone says, "You hurt my feelings," people often respond with, "That wasn't my intention."
Which may be true, but timing matters.
Exactly. Sometimes the better response is listening first.
And then maybe saying something like, "I didn't mean it that way."
That phrase can calm things down a lot if it's genuine.
Although tone matters too, because if you say it aggressively, it defeats the purpose.
Completely.
I learned that the hard way once. I remember telling someone, "That came out wrong," after making a sarcastic comment that sounded much harsher than I intended.
That's another really useful sentence.
Yeah, because sometimes your emotions distort your delivery. The words in your head sound different once they leave your mouth.
Especially when you're tired, stressed, or emotionally overwhelmed.
And correcting yourself quickly helps prevent misunderstandings from growing.
I also think it's powerful when people admit their emotions directly instead of hiding them behind anger.
Like saying, "I'm upset, but I want to explain myself."
Yes, that kind of honesty makes conversations feel safer.
It's vulnerable, though.
Very vulnerable, but usually much more productive.
I think people assume emotional communication means crying or losing control, but honestly, emotional communication can also look calm and thoughtful.
That's such a good point. Being emotional doesn't mean being irrational.
Sometimes it just means the conversation matters to you.
And when both people remember that, difficult conversations become a lot less destructive.
They still feel uncomfortable sometimes, but at least they start becoming real conversations instead of emotional battles.
You know, one thing I've noticed about really good communicators is that they don't rush emotionally charged conversations.
I admire people like that because I honestly don't know how they do it.
What part seems difficult to you?
Staying calm while somebody is upsetting you, that feels almost impossible sometimes.
I get that, but I don't think emotional control means becoming emotionless.
Maybe not, but when people say stay calm, it sometimes sounds like they're saying don't feel anything.
That's a very important difference, actually. Emotional control and emotional suppression are not the same thing.
Explain that.
Emotional suppression is when you ignore your feelings, hide them, or pretend they don't exist. Emotional control is being aware of your feelings without letting them completely control your behavior.
So you're still emotional, just more intentional with your reactions.
Yes, that's a good way to describe it.
I think I confuse those two sometimes.
A lot of people do, especially people who grew up hearing things like stop being emotional or calm down.
Which usually makes people more emotional.
Usually, yes.
I think my biggest problem is reacting too fast. If I feel criticized, my response comes out immediately.
Before you fully process what the other person meant?
Exactly. It's almost automatic.
That's why listening is such a huge part of emotional communication.
Listening sounds simple until emotions are involved.
Very true, because when people feel attacked, they stop listening to understand and start listening to defend themselves.
Wow, that's painfully accurate.
You can actually hear it happen during arguments sometimes. One person is speaking, but the other person is already preparing their next response instead of absorbing what's being said.
I've definitely done that.
Me too. I think everybody has.
So how do good communicators avoid that?
I think they slow themselves down mentally. They pause before reacting. They ask questions instead of assuming things.
That pause part is hard, though.
It is, but slowing down your speech can change everything emotionally.
Really?
Absolutely. Fast speech usually increases emotional intensity. Slower speech creates space for clearer thinking.
That makes sense. When people argue, they tend to interrupt each other and speak faster and faster.
And the conversation starts feeling like a competition instead of communication.
I remember once somebody stayed unusually calm during an argument with me, and honestly, it frustrated me at first.
Because you wanted emotional energy back from them?
Maybe it felt strange because I was ready for a fight, and they responded very thoughtfully instead.
That can feel uncomfortable when you're emotionally activated.
Yeah, but later I realized they were actually helping the conversation stay productive.
Sometimes calm communication protects both people.
Although I do think there's a limit. Some people stay so calm that it feels emotionally distant.
I agree with that. Being calm shouldn't mean sounding cold or disconnected.
Right, because then the other person might feel ignored emotionally.
Good communication still needs empathy. People want to feel heard, not managed.
That's a really important distinction.
And choosing words carefully matters too. Emotional conversations are sensitive. One careless sentence can stay in someone's memory for years.
That's true. People often forget details, but they remember how conversations made them feel.
Exactly, which is why emotionally aware people pay attention not just to what they say, but how they say it.
Tone, timing, body language.
Even facial expressions.
Communication is exhausting when you think about all this.
It can be, but I also think emotional awareness makes relationships healthier in the long run.
Probably because people stop trying to win every conversation.
Yes, mature communication is less about victory and more about understanding.
And honestly, being understood feels a lot better than winning an argument anyway.
I think conversations like this are important because so many people secretly believe they're bad communicators just because they become emotional sometimes.
Yeah, when in reality, emotions are part of being human.
Nobody handles every difficult conversation perfectly.
Not even close.
There are people who sound confident and calm on the outside, but still struggle internally during emotional moments.
Honestly, I think hearing that helps because a lot of people compare themselves to others and assume everybody else knows how to communicate perfectly.
Meanwhile, most people are learning through experience, mistakes, awkward conversations.
And regretting texts they sent too quickly.
Oh, definitely those two. I still cringe at some old messages I sent when I was upset.
Same here, but I guess part of growing emotionally is learning to pause before reacting.
And learning that vulnerability isn't weakness.
That's a big one. Sometimes people spend years hiding their real feelings because they think honesty will make them look fragile.
When actually, honest communication usually creates stronger relationships.
I agree. Saying I'm angry is easy sometimes. Saying I'm hurt can be much harder.
Because anger feels protective. Exactly. Hurt feelings feel exposed and personal.
But I think emotional honesty also makes conversations more real, more human.
And probably more productive, too. People are less likely to fight when they understand what's actually happening emotionally.
Instead of just reacting to tone or volume.
Right, and communication is still a skill at the end of the day. Nobody's born knowing how to navigate emotional conversations perfectly.
Which means people can improve.
Slowly, yes. Maybe not overnight, but definitely with awareness and practice.
Even small changes help. Pausing more, listening better, choosing words more carefully.
Giving yourself permission to think before speaking, and giving other people a little grace, too. Because sometimes they're struggling emotionally in ways we can't immediately see.
I really believe that most people don't want to hurt each other intentionally. They just don't always know how to express themselves clearly when emotions get involved.
That's true. And maybe that's why emotional conversations matter so much. They force people to be more honest, more patient, and sometimes more compassionate.
Yeah, sometimes the strongest thing you can say is simply, I'm hurt.
Thank you for listening to us. Subscribe to Speak English Daily for authentic English podcast conversations, listening practice, speaking tips, and real-life English you can actually use every day.